I walked into work on Monday, convinced everyone would be able to tell I had a secret. But it was just like any other Monday, except I was 20 minutes late because I'd been up half the night thinking about my goals. John, Anna, and Maddie said hi to me as I walked past the lobby and toward the loan office. Des asked if I'd had a good weekend, because Des asked everyone if they had a good weekend. Carla, who was on the phone, waved acrylic-nailed fingers at me. I stood near Carla's desk a moment, listening to her and I hear you into the phone. Okay, Carla said. Okay, yes. All right. Thank you, hon. Yeah, you have a blessed morning. She hung up the phone. Fucking bitch. Hi, Carla. She stretched, popping her knuckles. Oh, man, I just want a blunt and some food. What time? Oh, it's only 8:22. Gould, what am I gonna do? Well, you could take your lunch early, I guess, and I have some friends who could hook you up with the other thing. She grinned. Oh, hon, you make me smile. You do, you do. She held out a pink slip of paper to me. You got a message. Already? I took it from her. They called as soon as the bank opened. She got distracted as Tom from Consumer Lending walked out of his office and crossed the lobby. Woo! Carla leaned back in her chair, staring after Tom. I really want to fuck him. We went through this at least once a week. That's sexual harassment, Carla. Not if he doesn't hear me say it. No, I think it still is. She cracked her knuckles again, purple nails flashing. You're so good, Always so good. I have some dark secrets. She cackled. I bet! I bet it's always the quiet ones. I smiled and took my message slip back to the office. Sat down, breathed out. The loan office was decent, private, quiet. I shared it with IT Joe, but IT Joe didn't talk much. I turned on the computer and logged in, stared at the screen, trying to summon the motivation to pull up loan applications. I glanced at the slip of paper. Who the fuck would call for me, specifically, right when the bank opened? It took me a few seconds to decipher Carla's scrawl. Cass, it read, and then a familiar number. For a second, I didn't feel anything. It was like my brain refused to fully register the information. Then I felt annoyed, mostly. Why at work? Why not on my cell? She'd probably deleted my contact info years ago. I hesitated for a few seconds, then picked up the phone and called the number. A scratchy female voice answered. Hello? Cass? It's Gould. A pause, then a cough. I could almost smell the smoke on her clothes, the hairspray she used that smelled like citronella. Gould, hey. Hey, you wondering why I called? Yes. It's been a while. I hadn't seen Hal's parents since the funeral. Cass had hugged me, sobbing. I hadn't even been able to picture her crying until I'd seen it happen, and said we should stay in touch. But we hadn't. Not at all. Something rattled on the other end of the phone. Ben and I found a box. We'd gotten it from Hal's room, said do not open. We didn't for a long time, but... A small clicking sound. I could picture her with her fingers at her mouth, biting her nails. She used to do that all the time, stop in mid-sentence to bite off a thumbnail or pick at her cuticles. Oh, I said. A do not open box didn't sound like Hal. Or it sounded like teenage Hal, not the Hal I'd known. You want it? What's in it? Video games, books, nothing secret. Another pause. We can give it to Goodwill. No, I said quickly. I'll take it. Why? Like I didn't have enough of Hal's old stuff? But I wanted to see what video games, what books. You want us to ship it? That'd be great. Another cough. You mind paying on delivery? I rolled my eyes. How many times had Cass and Ben called Hal asking for money? And how many times had Hal guilted me into sending them some since I was the one with the steady income? Sure, I muttered. Okay, we'll send it out tomorrow. I sat there for a moment after we ended the call, drumming my fingers on the desk. I'd never cared much for Cass and Ben. My own parents weren't always a picnic. They'd had me nearly 20 years after my two brothers, and I got the sense that while they'd been enthusiastic parents in their early 20s, having me in their 40s had been like trying to get the band back together and then discovering that the magic just wasn't there anymore. But they weren't bad people. Cass and Ben, on the other hand, they'd done drugs Hal's entire childhood. They'd literally introduced Hal to their dealer when he was a teenager. They'd left him home alone for days at a time from age 7 onward, taught him how to microwave mac and cheese and frozen dinners. They treated me like an ATM. They'd just been general shitheads. But fuck if talking to Cass didn't feel like a link to Hal. Hal, who had, for a time, been it for me. I'd grown up shy, hearing from my mom that the squeaky wheel got the oil, but knowing I'd rather fall off the fucking wagon than make a sound. I'd stumbled through high school and college, checking off the boxes. I kissed a girl, I got drunk, I kissed a boy, I got drunker. I joined a liberal student society, I graduated summa cum laude, not because I was all that smart, but because I did whatever I was told, from turning in assignments on time to studying even on Friday nights. I got a job, I opened a Roth IRA. I'd assumed that my life would barrel on, uneventful and relatively safe, and that my only adventures would involve me starting from a single image and dreaming my way into wars or castles or avalanches. And then Hal had come along. I'd met him at a synagogue potluck. He was talking to a girl named Rebecca, telling her about some empty house outside of town he sometimes snuck into. His fly was down. I wouldn't normally have said anything, but he was just so, I don't know, not beautiful exactly, but captivating. Friendly and open and chill as fuck. He seemed like the kind of person who'd just laugh it off if you told him his fly was down, so I probably didn't need to feel embarrassed on his behalf. Yet, I didn't want to say anything, because I was enjoying the glimpse of smiley-faced boxers. I finally went up to him and told him. As predicted, he laughed and pulled his zipper up, thanking me. "Nice boxers," I said, surprising myself. He grinned again. "What are you wearing?" I hadn't been prepared for that. But without even thinking, I'd reached into my jeans and pulled up the waistband of my plain blue boxers and showed him. It was like the rest of the synagogue potluck didn't exist. Like there was no danger my mother would glance over at any moment and see me showing my boxers to a stranger. Hal nodded at my underwear, stroking his chin like he was thinking. "You could get crazier." He met my gaze. "You could pull off wacky boxers. James Bond, dinosaurs, rainbows, playing cards." "There are playing card boxers?" "Hell yeah. And your ass would look good with a 9 of diamonds on it. I mean, it'd look better with nothing at all on it, but if it has to be covered." I'd expected to be more shocked, more prudishly outraged. No one had ever hit on me that directly before, and I'd been aware in some corner of my brain that I was insecure about my body, and therefore especially susceptible to flattery, but also alert to the possibility of mockery. Yet the words that came out of my mouth weren't, "How dare you, sir? I said good day." They were, "My birthday's coming up. Maybe someone ought to get me some playing card boxers." And he had. He'd gotten my number that night and my address a few days later, and this sloppily wrapped package showed up at my apartment 2 days after my birthday. So of course I'd had to call him and thank him, and invite him over to see how they looked on me. I straightened my tie. The loan office suddenly felt cold. My memories of Hal worked like that sometimes. I'd feel, for a few minutes, like he was right beside me. Feel his warmth, the movements of his body, and then it would all fade, suddenly, leaving the space around me so empty I almost couldn't stand it. We'd stayed friends after we'd broken up. Dave said he'd barely felt a ripple in the group dynamic, so it was easy to forget that I'd ever hated Hal, resented him, felt trapped in that relationship and unsure how to get myself the fuck out. Bill. That name, always buzzing at the edge of my mind, landing on my memories of Hal and spoiling each one, that was what I hated. That I couldn't think of one without thinking of the other. That whatever page I flipped to in Hal's story, I already knew how it ended. Bill Hensoning. Bill Henson, the man, the legend, Edgeplay Jesus. Had people really contacted him asking him to kill them? How awful would that feel? Don't fucking pity him. Was he sorry? I closed my eyes. I'd tried so fucking hard over the years to imagine how I'd feel if I, God forbid, ran someone over with my car or something. I hadn't followed the trial, but Kamen had. He'd said it had gone down as Miles had predicted, not enough evidence for a murder conviction. Said the defense had done a hatchet job on Hal's character, harping on the fact that Hal was stoned and taking poppers that night, claiming he'd lied to Bill about his sobriety and pressured Bill into the rope scene. The defense attorney's post-trial statement was the only part of that whole circus I'd watched. I remembered her pinched, windburned face as she declared that the prosecution had been arrogant and too ambitious in seeking the murder charge. Any other county, she said, would have had the sense to offer a manslaughter plea. But then why had the motion to reduce the charge to manslaughter been denied? Why, unless there was some reason it had to be murder? I'd played out a dozen scenarios in my head. Maybe Bill had a friend in the court system who'd done him a favor. Maybe there was evidence that had been suppressed. Or maybe it really was just a fucking stupid accident. And if Bill had possessed an ounce of sense, Hal would still be here. My anger grew until my hand was shaking on the desk. "It's you," I wanted to tell Bill. "You're the reason that every time I start to get something I want, it doesn't work out. I try to think about Greg and Kel, my friends, my job, my future, and I always end up stuck with you. You stupid fucker." I wish I'd done more than punch you in the fucking face. I wish I'd killed you. At least that would be fair. That would be karma. I wish I knew how to make you hurt the way I hurt. I just hope that someday you learn what it's like to die alone, to be afraid and have no one fucking there. Part of me felt guilty about the words as soon as I thought them, and part of me was surprised by how much I meant them.